and welcome. Uh, it's July 21st, 2024. I'm Eric Murphy. This is Skeptic Generation, and we need to talk. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. I was just getting something ready for the show, and I want to make sure that I get this right because it's absolutely insane. But first, how was your week? Mine was amazing. I've been working on a video actually with my friend Genetically Modified Skeptic. We just finished it. It's about The Boys, the TV show. So if you haven't seen it, check it out and you will get to see what my editing looks like. So yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. And it's basically what I've been doing all week. So there we go. That said, I want to get into the topic for this video. The person that I wanted to bring up, her name's Jemima Packington. And she's right here. And she calls herself an asparamancer. That's right. This person can read the future by tossing asparagus. And it absolutely tickles me. Why do I want to talk about asparamancy? Well, I think that for people who don't know, that it is a really, really long and tried tradition for skeptics and atheists to, come up against and challenge mediums and fortune tellers, things like that. Famously, there's a crossover between the skeptic atheist community and the magician community. Famously, Harry Houdini, after his mom passed away, was absolutely sick of spirit mediums saying that they could contact his mom from the other side. He spent a lot of time when he wasn't on, doing his shows, exposing these mediums for taking advantage of the grieving. I think that's amazing. After that, you have this amazing group of people who worked really, really hard for a long time to expose this kind of bullshit. Obviously, you have James Randi, or the Amazing Randi, who set up an annual challenge, $1 million, to whoever could prove their psychic or supernatural abilities. And every year it was a big thing. It was called the Amazing Meeting. Luckily, I got to meet James Randi before he died. It was a really awesome experience. But beyond him, you have people like Penn and Teller, who also, did shows like Bullshit and are really big on kind of exposing that kind of crap. And I think it's really, really amazing. When it comes to people who want to take advantage of the grieving, to say, oh, your recently passed relative wants to get in touch with you, I feel like it's one of the grossest things I've ever heard. Really, honestly. And then you have people like Jemima Packington. And what this person does is they do more tabloid type things. But what really surprised me, and one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up today, is that she had put out a bad reading on how far England would go in the finals. And unlike other readers, she copped up to it. She didn't just ignore the miss. She said this was a miss. This was a problem. I thought that was kind of cool. And I wanted to bring this up as a topic today. What is the place of things like tarot, fortune reading, and different pseudo-spiritual practices? And, is there any redeeming value to it at all? Is the entertainment worth the downside? And do they always need to come with the downside? So I want to put the phone number out there. We have open lines, and I would love to get some callers. I would love for today to be a fun episode. Obviously, if you have a spiritual belief or anything like that, you're always welcome to call. The phone number is 412-SKEPGEN. That's 412-753-7436. Or you can go to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. And yeah, it is toll free. And I would love to talk to you. So getting back to it, while I wait for some calls to come in, I want to give you my opinion on it. I, as a believer, I thought that it was real and that it was witchcraft. That you had people who were divining using, dark forces or whatever, and that it was an entryway into the occult and obviously into Satanism. According to my religious group. As I moved out of it, I became more interested. I thought, well, maybe this is a different kind of spirituality. And there are a lot of people who do believe that it's kind of an alternative spirituality. I thought it was kind of cool, messing with things like Ouija boards and all of that. Felt subversive in a way that was kind of healing for me. And eventually, when I came back around to really start questioning things and not just leave my faith, but become a skeptic and eventually call myself an atheist, I got really pissed off about it. I hated it. And the reason I hated it was because I felt like everyone who does it must be only interested in taking advantage of others. If you would do this kind of thing, then you would be taking money from grieving people. You would be preying on disadvantaged folks, whether it be emotionally or anything like that. And I thought it was absolutely atrocious. And all through, even when I was doing Talk Heathen and for years doing SKEPGEN, I was like, it's absolutely gross and I can't be anywhere near it. But then I've met people who will do like a tarot reading or something like that. Skeptics, people who know that it's not actually getting in touch with anything spiritual, but who treat it like a form of meditation. In the same way that, you could splatter paint onto a canvas and then use whatever's there to create a design. The design wasn't meant to be there. There wasn't some preordained design, in the splatter, but it created a jumping off point for creativity. And so the question is it irredeemable? That's what I really want to know. Is it irredeemable? Is there a way to view that kind of stuff as paint splatters, or, for people who absolutely know that it's bullshit? Or do you take the position that I've had for years, which is that any kind of support that you give that thing makes it more likely to feel, what's the word? It gives it credibility for people who are incredulous or who are credulous, and that's not good either, right? For people who don't know better, if you're giving any kind of credibility to something like that, then maybe people who don't know that it's bullshit can get taken advantage of. So I have one caller in. Before I take them, I want to hop on and put the phone number out one more time because I would love to have these conversations. It is 412-SKEPGEN. That's 412-753-7436. Or for that crystal clear, clean, crisp audio, you can use tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN to call on your computer. And I have a cult screener who is waiting to talk to you, and I would love to have those conversations. All right, with that said, let's talk to our first caller, Sunny in Indiana. Sunny, you're live on the show.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing really well. How are you?
It's great so far. So far, so good. I've got energy today. I'm still drinking coffee.
Good. I'm waiting for the caffeine to kick in, but I'm loving the vibe. So,
all right.
What do you want to talk about?
So you were mentioning folks who can claim that they, can talk to the dead and stuff, and it's all fun and games, sure, but what really grinds my gears is when they try to make money off of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like the ghost box sellers and the
what's that?
You don't know well, I'm sure you know what a ghost box is, but I'll go ahead and explain it for the folks at home.
Yeah.
So a ghost box is an electronic device that basically quickly moves through a bunch of different radio stations. So you'll hear a bunch of static, a bunch of random noise. But they claim that you can contact your dead relatives who will come through the noise and the madness in some sort of way that you can understand, and communicate with you in some shape or form.
Gross.
And these things, yeah. I mean, if you ever watch any of those, reality TV ghost hunting shows or whatever, I'm sure you've seen one.
Honestly, it's okay. So there is a level of deep cringe that I get from watching those ghost shows.
Oh, sure. No, I gotcha.
I have such a hard time. So honestly, I've heard of like, different frequency whatever detectors. So is it like that where it's just putting out static and hoping to
Kind of, but you're actually going to hear little snippets of actual live radio programming. Yeah, if you've never heard one before, I recommend looking it up at some point. You're going to find all kinds of, quote unquote commercials, like on YouTube or wherever, people trying to sell this stuff. But I used to listen to a lot of paranormal talk radio. It's like junk food for the brain. I enjoy it so much.
Just for the viewers who don't know, there's a phenomenon called pareidolia.
Yes, we're going to get into that for sure.
If you want to set it up more, I can hold off.
No, go ahead. You can go ahead and...
Cool. So, there's this phenomena called pareidolia. Pareidolia is something that is just kind of hardwired into human brains. We see patterns everywhere. It's the same reason why people say you can look at the clouds and see different shapes and animals and boats or whatever. That's pareidolia. And it really does help. There have been plenty of convincing arguments by people who have said that, it's better to hallucinate seeing a lion in the bushes, to mistakenly say, oh my God, I saw a lion in the bush and run, than to not have seen it or to write it off and get eaten by that lion. Right? There's an evolutionary advantage to pareidolia. Now, what you're talking about, Sunny, is something called auditory pareidolia, which is hearing or trying to make out human voices, different things that may come off as, patterns and sounds in waveform. And so, that's absolutely a studied phenomenon.
Yes. Yep, and I'm totally aware of that, and I was when I was listening to this paranormal talk radio show that I was listening to at the time. I'm kicking myself because I cannot remember the name of the show, but anybody else in the community who, I'm sure there's some overlap of skeptics who like to listen to this kind of thing. Some of you may remember this happening live on the air that I'm about to describe. So I was listening to this paranormal talk radio show, and they communicated with their community over Twitter. And I went by the same name, Insomnia Doodles, aka Sunny, on Twitter at the time. And I would actively talk to this community week in and week out as they were doing their shows because I found it entertaining. But it kind of pissed me off when he had this guy on selling ghost boxes, and he was claiming that he could talk to the dead for the low price of whatever he was charging for the dang ghost box.
Really?
And he was doing, but this idiot decided that sorry, I shouldn't call him an idiot. This guy decided
you can call him an idiot.
I'm trying to be nice, but this guy was doing live demonstrations of the ghost box on the air. So they invited their listeners to talk about their lost relatives and try to communicate with them live on the air through the ghost box via Twitter.
Okay.
So I came up with this story about my Uncle Mark.
Oh, Uncle Mark. Okay.
Oh yeah, and I gave them details. I said, my Uncle Mark passed away a couple of years ago. We were so close. We like to stay up and watch late night comedy together.
Oh my God. Is it bad that my mental image of Uncle Mark, he looks just like John Candy?
I don't know who John Candy is.
You've never seen Uncle Buck?
No. Okay, I guess I'm going to have to put that on a list of things that I should watch.
Oh, my friend. Oh, my sweet. Sunny, you're going to have such a good time.
Uncle Buck, huh? All right.
Well, or Cool Runnings?
Cool Runnings. Okay. I don't know.
Okay. Home Alone.
Home Alone. I've seen Home Alone.
Okay. In Home Alone, do you remember when, I'm sorry, everybody, we are just getting way off. We are talking about John Candy. For people who know John Candy and are absolutely shocked, you and I, we're on the same page. We need to let Sunny know about this. Right? Okay. So do you remember when, Kevin's mom, is desperately trying to get back to him, right? Kevin McAllister.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And so she's at the airport and she's trying to, you know, sell her earrings or anything to get a flight. And there's a polka guy who says, "You can ride with us." And we're touring, we're a touring polka band, and we can drop you off. We can take you where you want to go. Do you remember that? Kind of a big guy in a red jacket.
I'm gonna be totally honest with you. I haven't seen Home Alone since I was like 12.
But he's the polka king. Okay, fine. You know what? You're gonna have a good time. Anyway, I apologize. Your Uncle Mike.
Uncle Mark.
Uncle Mark, go ahead.
Yes, yeah. So I told this the show host and his guest all about my Uncle Mark and how we used to stay up, you know, late listening to late night comedy, and that's how we bonded together. And I said, you know, I just wanted to contact him and see if he was out there. So the show host, thinking that I was, you know, a real, you know, being genuine with this Uncle Mark request, asked the guy with the ghost box to contact Uncle Mark. And live on the air, they were talking about how, oh, did you hear that? I heard laughter. It's definitely, you know, connecting with the comedy aspect. Uncle Mark is here with us now. And, you know, after they started making all these huge reaches to try to connect these random sounds to this fictional Uncle Mark, I finally listened to a tweet saying, hey, I got to be honest with you. Uncle Mark does not exist. I just wanted to prove that this ghost box stuff is it's bullshit. And you're taking advantage of people who are grieving, and I don't like it. And the host got so flustered on the air. He was so mad. He said, I don't think I need you to listen to my show anymore. And, but, I mean, surprisingly, a lot of the folks in his community on Twitter replied saying, no, her experiment was valid.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I got some support from the community, but the host was beyond pissed at me for a little while. Eventually he came back and he apologized, and we talked over Twitter and patched things up, but he was mad at me for making him look embarrassing him on the air, essentially.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But it needed to be done.
It really, really did. That's a really cool story. I love that.
I thought you might enjoy that.
Yeah. Okay. So in the live chat, somebody's have you seen Spaceballs?
I love Spaceballs.
So, do you like? Okay, so you know the Wookiee stand-in. I'm a Mog. That's John Candy.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I can see that as Uncle Mark. Canonically, that's my new headcanon for Uncle Mark.
Beautiful. Or he could just be the Polka King of Sheboygan. Yeah. No, I like you got. You got to check it out. I so appreciate you. This is great.
Before I go, could I really quick tell you or respond to your question that you asked folks, like what you think the place of like tarot and?
Oh my gosh! Yeah, the whole reason for the yes. Please go ahead.
So I mentioned, of course, I'm a skeptic. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in magic as much as I would love to. That would be amazing. But I will say that there is kind of a fun thing that you could do with a tarot deck. Wherein you can kind of determine what your true thoughts are on things, in the sense that, like, you ever had a really tough decision, like a really hard decision, like, do I want chocolate ice cream or vanilla ice cream? Mm-hmm. And you can't really decide which one's better. And you say, all right, I'm going to flip a coin. Heads, I'm getting chocolate ice cream. Tails, I'm getting vanilla ice cream. And you flip that coin that lands on tails, and you realize, damn it, I really wanted chocolate. And then that's when you know, oh, I should get chocolate ice cream.
Yep.
That's what my heart really desires. That's what I see tarot. So if you ask the cards a question and you do the whole ritual and the cards come out saying, well, you really should leave this guy that you're with, and your heart says, but no, I don't feel like I should leave. I'm in love with this person. That's how you know what your true intentions or your true feelings are about that kind of thing. So that's kind of how I see that kind of stuff.
Well, and also, honestly, like, so this is probably opening up way too much. But I have had a history of really narcissistic people finding their way into my life. And it really is, you know, people who will kind of latch in and separate you from your loved ones and really kind of prey upon you. I had well, I mean, I don't really need to hide it. V suggested that I try like a tarot thing to just kind of feel out my thoughts on it. And what came about from it is I really, it helped me come to terms with the fact that I had some abusive relationships,
God, that's hard.
you know?
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
the thing is, it's one thing to push it away, and it's another thing to creatively look at that situation and go, oh, if this was any other person, I'd be like, run for the hills, you know?
Right.
And so I did see benefit in that. But when that happened, I was like, there's no way I would ever tell anybody about that because, I don't want to lend any kind of legitimacy to things like tarot
Mhm.
because, I don't want anyone to think that it's real. And I never at that point thought that it was real, but it was just a creative outlet. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's kind of where I stand. But it sounds like Sunny, it sounds like we're on the same page.
Yeah, heck yeah, awesome. I'm not surprised. No, it's definitely, if you've never done it before, get yourself a tarot deck. I mean, get a cheap one. You don't have to shell out $40 for one of the crazy expensive ones out there. But
Well,
it's fun. Or just use a deck of playing cards. There's a way to do that too. But it's
I,
just fun.
it really, really is. I have seen a few skeptics kind of do that as like a party trick.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really, really fun. I think one of the most interesting tarot reads that I saw that was just like really, really interesting was No Illusions. Did one years ago, and it was really, really cool to see. I think there might still be footage of it out there, but if you haven't,
Oh, cool.
do you know who No Illusions is?
This is the first time I've heard their name.
Well, it is a pseudonym, believe it or not.
Oh, not on the birth certificate. Ah, interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Well, it's because he lives in Georgia, which is entirely understandable. Um, but there he has two co-hosts and has a show called The Scathing Atheist. It's a podcast. It's definitely worth
Okay.
checking out. It was something that gosh, I hope they're still around. I'm sure they're still around. It was definitely one of the things that I listened to all of the time for years before I ever started doing my own atheist content. So, an OG for sure. And also, I've got to hang out with him before. He was a really nice guy. In fact, he and his wife, when they were touring through Texas, they actually stayed at my house. So I got to know those guys pretty well. But anyway, it was really, really fun. Sonny, you are just the kind of person who could just get me talking about anything. I love this.
Thanks. Oh, you know what? We got a good thing going.
We
I'll
really,
call in
really
here
do.
sometime. Yeah.
Sonny, I look forward to talking to you next time. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
calling in.
I'll probably see you at the after show.
All right, sounds good.
Take care.
You too. What a sweet person. I love it. I feel like that's a great start. I was feeling sleepy, when you put in really, really long hours. Like I was putting in some crazy hours this week getting this video for the Boys TV show for GM Skeptic. And so my sleep schedule's all messed up. I'm sitting down, I'm trying to chug an energy drink and really kind of focus in. And when you have somebody that has really just great energy, it's infectious. I really appreciate that, Sonny. I needed that this morning. All right, let's move on and talk to our next caller, Ashley in Minnesota. Ashley, you're live on the show.
Hello again, Eric.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I am pretty all right. Undercaffeinated and overly tired, but I am okay.
Well, I appreciate you calling in. Let's see here. I haven't gotten to take a look at your notes. Atheistic Satanist, rock on. Topic 1, want to talk about tarot. Topic 2, visual artifacts. All right, let's do them both. So where did you want to start?
I think the one that's maybe slightly more interesting for a call-in show, maybe the second one. So my ex-wife is an epileptic.
Okay.
She has epilepsy. And in the town I live in was one of the last epileptic colonies in Minnesota.
Wait, epileptic colony?
Yeah, insane asylums for epileptic people.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, because
shit.
up until 75, you couldn't, there were laws in Minnesota that basically was to keep the undesirables out of the public eye. So a lot of towns, I think the big one is the Rochester clinic, and then there was another one in Anoka. There are just miles of tunnels
Really?
to cart the undesirables from place to place.
People with epilepsy, though? That's so wild.
Yeah, they used to keep them in literal baby cages that were just welded with steel bars and stuff.
Holy
The pictures
fuck.
are horrifying.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, so I'm assuming we're getting into like haunted asylum territory.
yes.
Okay.
So because my ex-wife and my ex-wife is an epileptic, and I have slightly higher charisma. We got on good terms with the groundskeeper of where the asylum used to be.
Okay.
And we took a bunch of photos down there of it when it stopped being an epileptic colony, it started being like the town's nuclear shelter. So there's a bunch of equipment, lead-lined walls, and a bunch of stuff like that.
Okay.
And as with most old places, it was very, very dusty. So when we got back and started looking at the photos,
You got orbs?
Yes,
Yeah.
orbs and streaks. And my ex-wife was convinced that these were the spirits of the people who had died there, because a lot of them had, just due to the nature of staffing issues. I think at the time of closing, there were 128 patients and 12 staff.
Okay.
So people would go days without any sort of attendance at all.
Oh, geez.
So it had a very, very high mortality rate.
Yeah.
And she was convinced that these spirits, dust orbs, is what they were reaching out to her specifically because she has epilepsy. And they were trying to share that pain or something.
Interesting.
And yeah, and it's a fun story, and I think that's why a lot of why it's so easy to take advantage of people from.
Absolutely. Well, especially for someone like your ex-wife who felt an emotional personal connection to the story, and really that's ultimately what it is it's an addition to storytelling.
Yeah.
When you prime someone to believe that they're going to have a specific kind of experience, whether they can trick themselves into thinking that they had that experience, and that is absolutely one of those cases. How did it make you feel to have somebody in your life who felt like they were being actively haunted?
It was pretty wild. It was very hard because anytime she'd bring it up with lesser skeptical people,
Mm-hmm.
she would be like, yeah, and look, there's ghosts and stuff in these pictures. And I'm like, no, there's light refraction and dust and
In bokeh, for people who are into photography, there are a whole lot of really interesting reasons for there to be artifacts. It could be anything from dust on the lens to something being very out of focus, creating different effects. But there are so many explanations for things like that are absolutely, the more you know about cameras, the more you can understand exactly where that comes from. But to someone who doesn't, and especially if it fits a pre-existing narrative, people latch onto that stuff.
That's the more infuriating part. She's a professional photographer.
Oh, what?
Yes. So she's been doing photography for like 10, 15 years, and not only understands how artifacts are made, she doubled down with the ghost story, because she wholeheartedly believed that it couldn't have, it wasn't dusty enough, there wasn't enough light to make artifacts like that. And
What?
just, yes, that doubling down just
Okay.
irritated me so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because you can have artifacts like that, especially when there is no data going, like if you're using a digital camera. I can tell you right now, for people who are watching me, I have a lot of black in frame, right? I have black audio, foam tiles behind me. I'm wearing a black jacket and a dark shirt. I have black hair and graying beard. But there's a lot of black going on. But it's not pure black. When you're talking about color getting received by the sensor in the camera, it is actually picking up data, which is why you can see texture and different gradations. But even if you have a situation where there's no light getting in from certain places, right? And so you have an actual lack of data. So it's this kind of pure blank black. What can happen is digitally through compression, different patterns can arise from just the darkness. And so even when there's not enough light, you can still, through pareidolia, think that you can, see things like that. So it's absolutely wild for somebody to say, it has to happen under certain conditions. But here's a question, Ashley. Did your ex-wife feel like every time they saw those orbs, they thought it was ghosts?
No. So
that would piss me off.
Yeah.
I
it was so frustrating because she had this tendency to like double down on things that are simultaneously contradictory. With artifacts and stuff like that, with her photography, it be, oh, well, we were in a field, so obviously it's dusty and windy. But then she would take the opposite opinion when it was, an epileptic colony or an old jailhouse or stuff like that.
So for me, the thing that interests me here is rationality. Because I for a lot of skeptics, people might think to themselves that if they're rational, then they're correct. But that's not true. Something is rational if it fits within your worldview in the framework that you've constructed for the world. And so if your ex-wife had come to the conclusion that every time they saw orbs on the camera that it was ghosts, then they could still be rational because they're being consistent across, those things. But the fact that they're not doing that means that even to themselves, they're being irrational. Sorry, I know this is your ex, but that is interesting, and that would definitely kind of frustrate me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. 1 second. I do have. Oh, good. I had a caller who dropped out, and I wanted to tell them to call back in, but they called back in. Okay. So we talked about that. Now, what about tarot? It says in the notes that you wanted to talk about tarot.
Yeah. So much in the same way that ghost hunters and TV shows like that prey upon these nuances and prey upon people who want to believe a thing.
Yeah.
The tarot can have the same effect, especially if it's presented in such a way that it is magical. So what comes to my mind is we have a Renaissance fair here in Minnesota, and there are generally several tents at any given day of Ren Fair where people are heavily leaning into the magic of it to either take advantage of people who might think that it's some kind of magic, or they're playing a character. And where that irritates me is it's harder and harder to draw the line of reality and fantasy for people, and it gets muddled, especially when it's presented in a way that people make money from.
Yeah.
Which I'm not against people making money, and I'm not against people practicing tarot. It's just when you put them together, you can become more predatory.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And really, there's an ethical line. I feel like I've got some pretty strong opinions on that one. That I feel like you have an obligation to make it known that what you're doing is for entertainment only. Famously, there's the War of the Worlds broadcast, right? That famous radio broadcast that dramatized an alien invasion and freaked people out all over the United States. This was, 50 years ago? Something like that?
Something like that.
I think it was Orson Welles. And it caused mass hysteria.
Yeah.
But at no point did the creator think that it was real. They just portrayed this dramatized, alien invasion as a radio program. But I feel like the unethical piece there is that they did not clearly label it as such. And because of that, a lot of people were absolutely freaked out. I feel like if you're going to be at a Ren Fair, you're doing tarot readings or whatever, I don't see a problem with it so long as you are labeling it as entertainment. Because if you're not, then you're absolutely taking advantage of people. But there are a lot of things that people can get away with in Ren Fairs that I wouldn't let people get away with anywhere else, just because you're there for the fun. And you're right. People play characters, right? If somebody wants to go there and be, dressed as wear fairy wings and stuff like that and be like, hey, I'm a fae, I'd be like, cool. So I don't see any problem with that. But that's kind of where I draw the line.
The entertainment of it is novel, and I personally use it in meditative processes, as you had mentioned earlier in the show. And it just kind of helps me sit in the moment and think about things. But it kind of works like a Rorschach test. It's generally useless, but helps you see what you want to see effectively.
You know what? Calling it a Rorschach test is actually a really good and comparison. I like that a lot. Yeah, no, and I've got to tell you, for years I so hated this that honestly I'm putting this out there to bait somebody watching to be like, oh, just to call in to talk to an old version of myself, because I feel like I've created more space for this kind of thing than I ever used to, and so. Cheers. I'm glad you see value in it, and I'm glad it's able to help you meditate.
Yeah. But the main thing is, I make no money from reading my own tarot.
True enough.
So I feel like it's useful enough to reflect and kind of see or have an inner monologue, with aspirations and reflecting on events, and just kind of sitting in that moment. I think that can be a helpful form of meditation. So I don't think it's entirely unsalvageable, but much with most of my Satanism, I steal things from other places that I like.
Good.
So
good. Yeah. I love that. Ashley, thank you for your input. I appreciate that. And I really, really like that kind of analogy of using, tarot as a Rorschach test. That definitely is a very astute way of putting that.
Sweet. Thanks, Eric. Hopefully your show goes well. I appreciate you so much.
Hey, as long as I've got callers like you, the show's going to go great. Thank you.
Oh,
have a good one.
You too.
Wow. All right. So it looks like I got called out in the live chat. Alan Laudani. I'm misremembering that. Apparently, there were a lot of disclaimers during Orson Welles' radio broadcast of War of the Worlds. Huh. You know, honestly, I feel like that kind of makes me want to take it up with Mr. Anderson, my high school history teacher. Wow, that is absolutely not what I had taken from that class. Um, Cheers. Hey, thank you for the correction. And if I'm wrong about that, then I'm absolutely okay being wrong. And I want to make sure I get the right info out there. So, Alan Laudani calling me out, correcting me in the live chat. I appreciate you. Thank you for that. All right, let's move on and talk to Chris in Scotland. Chris, how's it going? Oh, let's try one more time. Chris, I misclicked. I didn't click the talk button, and so it didn't grab you. Chris in Scotland, how's it going?
Hi there. Thanks for having me on again. I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. I feel like I'm riding the energy from that first caller, and I'm just rolling. What did you want to talk about?
Well, here's the thing. As you know, the last few years I've been going through a bit of a journey from believing in everything from crystal magic to astral projection to Atlantis.
Look, if there's a paycheck in it, right?
Well, true. But at this point, I'm pretty vehemently atheistic. I've detached myself from every belief so far that I've found that isn't based on some kind of credible evidence or science. The ghost one was the last one, I believe.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to, in a way, help other people to detach themselves from these beliefs, much in the way that people helped me to get to where I am now. The problem is I just don't quite know what the best way to do it is, because I find myself sort of, I don't know, I get sort of frustrated with people who are, you know, at a certain sort of mindset. It's not necessarily religious people that I'm annoyed at. It's more the ideas that they sort of express, and the sort of the way that they don't really, their idea of what evidence is isn't necessarily in line with what evidence is or what should be. And I find that I have a bad tendency to get into sort of arguments, and I have a bad tendency to rant, when really what I want to do is to have discussions with people to try to sort of detach them from some of these ideas that they have. But I'm just not very good at it, to be honest, and I tend to just end up getting a bit frustrated with them. And I was wondering if street epistemology might be the way to go about it, because as it stands, I feel like I'm not really making all that much of a difference with a lot of people, and if anything, I'm just causing them to dig their heels in further, and what's more, I'm alienating them.
Yeah. No, I that's a really good observation. So I think that I want to address you on that first, and then kind of go to the broader piece of it. So when it comes to street epistemology, when people dig their heels in like that is what's supposed to happen.
I see.
It's just human psychology. You know, when you have your worldview challenge, sorry, I'm just adjusting my seat here. When you have your worldview challenge, most people double down and they get defensive. And that's entirely understandable. Heck, that's the way that I was too. In fact, Chris, did you say that you were a Christian at one point?
I was sort of raised Catholic, but I wasn't necessarily a big believer. I believed, but I wasn't a sort of a fanatic or anything, you know. I believed in the way that I sort of thought, well, you know, maybe there's a God, you know. And I find that I'm arguing with people when it's not really what I want to do. I want to kind of get into street epistemology and trying to be a bit more gentle in the way that I have these discussions. I'm just not sure how to go about it.
Well, I think part of it is setting yourself up with reasonable expectations. So I'll tell you right now that I had apologists in my family and in my church. You know, those are people who are arguing for their faith. In fact,
Yeah.
my uncle, who's now a pastor, was really, really into apologetics and would share them with me. And so, times that I had questions, I would get met with different apologetic responses, right? How do you know that God is there? The inner witness of the Holy Spirit. What's that? It's the feeling inside your heart that you get, that you just know that it's true. Oh, that works. I guess that works. Somebody in my life who's an authority is telling me that works. So I guess, I guess I believe. So
Yeah.
that must mean that it's true. Why do bad things happen to good people? Okay. Well, because sin entered the world. Do you know how many times I would be face to face with that problem of evil? Why do bad things happen to good people? And then hit the thought stopping technique of, well, because sin, because, we deserved it, because, it's God testing us, because it's, just all of these different responses to why sin must be the case. I have to imagine if I was having the same conversation with a skeptic at the time, they would have pulled their hair out and run screaming from the hills from me. The number of times that I would look at them in the face and act like I'd never heard what they said.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again. I needed to really come up against this idea of the problem of evil before I honestly gave it a fair shot, because I had so many ways to stop myself from thinking about it. And so if you're interacting with people and it feels like you're not getting anywhere, think of it like you're moving the mountain, right? You can't move the entire mountain at once, but you're moving a couple of stones every time, and eventually it's going to wear down, It just like most ideas, you need exposure to these things over and over again. And the fact is that if you're causing someone to think about something, that's enough. I mean, I know that there are a lot of atheist shows who will get really pissed off and piss off Christians and they'll go, oh, I'm going to research this and show you that they're wrong. And you hear the stories of people who deconvert right there on the spot, whatever. That's just not the case for most people, because most people aren't like that.
No.
And so just introducing them to the idea that other worldviews exist can be enough. And that's that piece. So I want to help you set your expectations that you're not going to deconvert someone on the spot. And if you do, it's not going to work. I promise you. I've had plenty of people who have reached out to me, been like, oh, I heard one of your shows and now I don't believe. And then the next week they message me again. I'm a believer now. The next week, I don't believe. The next week, I'm a believer now, right?
I see.
If someone's genuinely going to have good reason for believing the things that they believe, it's because they built up an epistemic framework to understand the world, and that takes time. So even if you don't want to, push people in questioning their faith, there are ways that you can help them build up that epistemic toolbox. Things like, finding where you have common ground and going, I don't know. Let's look this up together. Show them what it looks like to say, I don't know, and that it's okay to do that. Show them, how to research a thing if you don't understand what it is, and look up competing ideas so that you aren't just trying to insulate yourself against the other side, but you're doing it because you're making a well-informed decision.
No, absolutely. And I try to watch sort of street preachers, and I do try to, educate myself on sort of what sort of various religious worldviews, claim. I just worry that I'm sort of past the point of being able to have those conversations, just because I am sort of so outspoken, and I've even set up a Facebook group where I talk specifically about politics and religion. And I feel like people are just sort of almost on their guard around me.
Yeah. Well, because they need to...
Which isn't really what I want.
No.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. And there's a bit of a delay, so please don't take me as talking over you. I get you. What I wanted to add in there is because they need to consent. It can be frustrating, but not everyone is going to consent to engaging in a conversation. And not everyone who engages in a conversation is doing so with integrity. Talking to street preachers, you have to recognize that those people aren't there to get their minds changed.
No.
And if that's the case, then they're not opening themselves up to listening at all. In fact, they're there to perform. They're there to talk at people so that they can feel better about themselves when they go home because they did this performance. So street preachers.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Street preachers are probably not the people to go after. That said, it seems like the bigger issue here is you're still feeling angry. You're still feeling frustrated, and you need an outlet.
Exactly. I've set up a group so that I'm not posting on my personal Facebook so much about it because I do have friends who are religious to varying degrees. And I genuinely do care about them, and it's not as much as I view religious ideologies as a bit harmful. That doesn't mean that I dislike the people whatsoever, because you can have ideas that aren't necessarily the best, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad person. And I thought setting up this sort of group might help to have an outlet, but I don't know. I feel like if I was on Facebook or whatever talking about how much I love God and all this stuff, people would be like, yeah, that's amazing. But because I am sort of expressing my atheism in a way, that's viewed in a far less favorable light. It's like people view you as, instead of people realizing that maybe I'm trying to help or do some good in the world, people almost view you as like some guy that's like trying to spoil a magic trick or telling children Santa isn't real. It's like it's viewed in a much different light.
It really, really is. And it can be really, really frustrating. I can tell you, for me, I definitely annoyed the shit out of my friends. They were not super excited at the fact that for a long time all I wanted to do was share atheist memes.
Indeed.
And I look back at it and I kind of cringe a bit, but I needed to go through that. I think that if you're frustrated, be frustrated, and you don't need to be this best version of yourself right out the gate. That you have the right to heal and to grow and to fuck up from time to time, and that's totally okay. Another outlet that you might consider is check out the SKEPGEN Discord. There are cool people in there who, it can be just another place to talk to folks.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do just kind of want to affirm to you that it is totally understandable to be angry. When we talk about the angry atheist phase, some people never stop being angry. And what's funny is when I look at different atheist content, I feel like there are different places in the journey that people go to, right? And I think that the angrier shows are places for people who are still kind of fresh and pissed off. And I view my content as more for people who have been atheists for a while and cooled down a bit. And so the fact that you're here at all says a lot. But I definitely encourage you to, if you're going to be angry. Let it out. That's totally okay. And the time will come where at some point you're not going to be as angry. You can do other things. But I don't know. The question about street epistemology, it would not have worked for me. I would have just been way too pissed off, and I don't know how those people have the patience and generosity that they do. But
indeed, I watch Anthony Magnabosco a lot. He seems incredibly patient. Sorry, I talked over you there. I wasn't.
No. I'm right there. Yes, absolutely. Anthony Magnabosco is a great example. I don't know how people like that do it, but I'm so glad they're there. I recommend practice. Try it. See if it works out for you. If it does, awesome. If it doesn't, it's okay. It didn't work for me either, but it's worth trying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate the talk, and I hope you're having a good day, and I hope that things are going well for you.
They really are. I'm just grateful that the last video project I was working on is finished. That thing, I was putting in almost 20-hour days for like a week.
Oh, wow.
But it's like a 45-minute video, and I did it in a week, and I'm really proud of it. So, you know what? I'm glad that I get to do what I do, and do what I love. So you know
That's
what?
amazing.
Yeah, yeah. There's not money in it yet, but there will be.
Is this on like another YouTube channel, or is it on like how can I sort of access this sort of thing?
Oh yeah. So the last video that I did was for Genetically Modified Skeptic.
I see.
I've been helping him with his movie reviews and TV show reviews, and we did every instance of Christian nationalism in the series The Boys on Amazon Prime.
Oh wow, that's amazing. I've been watching The Boys recently again, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
it's the satire is amazing.
What blows my mind is some people don't understand that it's satire. So yeah,
True.
no, finish the series and give it a watch, or we go in order. So watch up until you're so you don't spoil things for yourself. But it's a good video. I recommend it. I kind of worked on that.
Listen, I will definitely watch it. I've watched series 1, 2, and 3, but it's been over a few years, so I'm rewatching it all, and then I'll start on series 4.
Good call. Good call. It was triggering for me. I'm not gonna lie.
It's understandable. It's a triggering show.
Right. But yeah. Anyway, Chris, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you so much. Have a good day, Eric.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
I don't have as many viewers as I used to have. I don't have the vitriol. I don't have the, people just brigading. And what I do have is this amazing small community that we're building together that I absolutely adore. I have no idea. There's nothing that I have done that could cause me to deserve the great people that are here. And I'm so glad you're all here. Like, what great callers. All right, let's talk to Connor in Texas. Connor, you are live on the show.
Hey, Eric, how's it going?
Hey, I'm doing okay. Honestly, I'm feeling the love today. What do you want to talk about?
So some of the callers are talking about ghost stories. I was going to call in about a ghost story in my family.
Oh, geez, is it one that you believe?
Actually, I'll tell you why I've come around to trying to what's the word I'm looking for? Analyze on what it could really be.
Okay.
In recent. But I'll start off. So
Yeah.
it's about when my great grandmother died, and I'll start off with the funny parts.
Okay, as long as we can as long as it's brief so that we can interact with it.
It's brief. She died the same day Steve Irwin did.
Oh no. Oh, that had to be a really shitty day. Connor, I'm sorry.
Imagine me on Monday and one of my friends at school comes up and goes like, "Hey, did you hear who died?" I'm like, "How do you know?" It's like, everybody knows. Like, everybody knows my great-grandmother died? Like, no, Steve Irwin.
Oh, Steve Irwin took the spotlight, which should have been for your... Yeah, I got you.
So that's that. And so it's more like after so it involves two different individual perspectives from people in my family, like what they experienced after she passed.
Mm-hmm.
So starting with my grandmother, a week after that, this is her mother who passed. She claimed that she was up in the middle of the night one night in her living room, because she usually falls asleep there, and that she woke up and saw like a younger version of her in like a raincoat and umbrella and stuff.
Okay.
And the thing is that when she told this to us, it was then when something my mother then told everyone that she hadn't told anyone before, is that the day before that my great grandmother passed away, it was my mom said she was in the room with her all by herself, and that the one of the things she asked her grandmother was that to that when she gets to heaven to ask God to send us some rain, because it was a real bad drought those few years. And that a couple of days later, after my grandmother's supposed seeing her, there was a huge rainstorm. Now I've recently come to, like, it's been like we've all in the family come to realize that my grandmother for quite a while now, like at least over a decade, has been slowly, getting more and more hallucinatory.
Yeah.
And so we probably didn't really notice anything near as much at the time. The only thing that I'm now, that's where I'm starting from on, like, just like deconstructing this. That was the word I was looking for a moment ago.
Deconstruction, yeah.
This. But the thing I'm trying to get around is, like, why would my grandmother, I can understand her hallucinating her own mother having just passed.
Yeah, absolutely.
But why the raincoat and umbrella that matches up with what my mom did not tell anyone before my grandmother telling us this?
So,
or am I just looking into it too much and like how do I deconstruct it lining up too much?
well, so there are a couple of things that can cause this, but the most common is the one that people absolutely hate, and that is that we rewrite our memories. We do. It happens, especially like when an incident happens, and let's say police get involved and they question the witnesses. They don't want the witnesses to ever talk to each other, because whether the witnesses are trying to or not, as soon as they start talking to each other, their stories all of a sudden line up, and they will swear up and down that that's the case. The fact is, we are incredibly limited. Our brains are incredibly limited in the information that we receive, right? Do you ever see those studies about, like, how much information your eyes actually take in and how much is your brain just filling everything else in?
No, I'm well aware of, like, how our own perceptions are so untrustworthy that it's actually becoming less and well, maybe not entirely, but less credible in, like, court cases and stuff for eyewitnesses.
Well, so the next piece there is when you get, collaboration from others, you fill those things in. So there's a chance that maybe it was a vaguer, more vague kind of idea of your great grandma until they talked to each other, and then all of a sudden she's wearing the exact same thing.
Right. That does make sense.
I mean, it definitely is something that human brains do. And I'm not saying that's necessarily what happened, but that is a case. Other things that might be the case is, you said that there was a huge rainstorm?
A couple of days after my grandmother supposedly saw her.
Yeah, I definitely think when you have events like that, they influence each other a lot. And for people who are watching and they're seeing me, like, turn to the side, it's been really, really hot here in Portland, and there's actually a rainstorm outside right now. I've seen several flashes of lightning outside the window as you were talking, so that's interesting. But yeah, I definitely think that it's a case of they may not admit it, but I suspect that their story now is far more detailed than it was at the beginning.
Well, it was like, they don't really talk about it. Like this was like a one-time discussion that was ever had. It's not like a regular thing that comes up.
Oh, okay. Then I'm not really sure.
I mean, it was an at the time thing that was talked about.
I gotcha.
But what you explained could still, like, the brain reworking stuff, and then that could still be the explanation. Like having, like, the state that anyone's brain is when a relative dies. I can only imagine, like, how susceptible that is in the moment.
Definitely. Yeah, and not just in the moment, but afterwards. What we do when we interact with those memories, we're consistently changing them. But yeah, that's definitely where I would go with that. Connor, I think I might let you go a little early. I'm getting a little bit of light flickering, and I'm afraid that I might get a power outage soon.
I got in just in time.
You really did. And I really appreciate you calling.
My story sent to the storm.
which I have been looking forward to. It has been so friggin' hot, and in Portland, nobody has air conditioning. I don't have air conditioning. And so I think I'm absolutely going to enjoy this storm. But Connor, thank you so much for calling in.
All right, good talking to you.
Good talking to you too. Take care. Alrighty, everybody. So I'm getting some flickering light, and I really do not need a power surge to damage this computer. So I'm probably going to wind up going early. But I am going to hop onto my phone. That way I can still do a bit of an after show. If you want to join me in the after show today, I would love to hang out and talk to you. It is on Discord, and the link is in the description for this video. Also, for people who want to see more of me, I was invited onto Skeptic Haven, where I did an appearance and we talked, had a really awesome conversation with some really amazing people. Check the link in the comments or in the description for that video, because I recommend it. I had a really great time and everyone there was wonderful. That said, now's the point where I read super chats. We do not have super chats today, and that's entirely understandable. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I really hope to see you in the after show, because heck, that was a lot of fun. If you like what I do, if you like this show, and you have not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share this out to other people who might be, interested in or dealing with, tarot or, future reading, or if somebody tries to read your asparagus. I would love for this to kind of get in their hands so that they can interact with these ideas in a different way, hopefully applying a little bit more skepticism. That said, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm Eric Murphy. And we have a Patreon, patreon.com/Skeptic Generation. And I'm glad we had this talk. Take care.